Thank you very much. So going back to input, any discussion from the board? There is none. Anyone in our room interested in any comment on accepting the impact fees? I don't see anyone, anyone online, probably not.
There's just a question for everyone's
Yeah.
edification.
Yeah,
The fees that we're requesting are not the entirety of the fees that are available, correct?
correct.
Right, and do we have a approximate percentage of the fees that are available that we're drawing from for this endeavor?
I don't have an updated amount, because the fees are collected ongoing. But so there's total fees that are collected for the town of Amherst. And then there's a split that, we are able to designate, for Amherst and Souhegan school districts. Typically, when we have that type of a split that we need to determine, it's been 60% for Amherst and 40% for Souhegan. So I believe it was about 90,000 or so that the last time we calculated was available. There is potentially likely more at this point. So that calculation was done a while ago. But the 35,000 that's being requested is what was determined to be needed.
Right.
So there is an opportunity for the board to go back to the town to request additional impact fees if the request is an eligible expense,
Right.
covered under impact fees.
And we would also have to take the total cost of the the contract with Harriman and split it between Amherst and Mount Vernon because it can only apply to Amherst.
Right, and we use
The 85-15 sort of split.
yep, that we determine based on equalized valuation.
Mhm.
And it's been a while since we talked about this, but these impact fees, is it true that if you don't use them within a certain time period, they go back to the developers?
Correct.
And what is
6
that
years.
time period?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And some of these have been collected for 2-ish so far, 3?
I'm probably going on 3 now.
Yeah, 3. Okay.
The town finance manager tracks all of the all the impact fees.
So after we close public hearing, we can take a motion to accept the use of the impact fees and award the contract to Harriman. And then we can, once we sign the contract, we can actually start the work, the interviews and working with our teachers and all that can start. Okay, any other questions? Is there anyone online by any chance?
There are folks online.
Anyone interested in raising their hand if they have anything to ask?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, no hands raised, so I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? All right, so can I have a motion to accept the use of the impact fees and to award the contract to Harriman?
So moved.
Moved by John, seconded by Anna. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right, 7-all. Thank you very much, everybody. I greatly appreciate your work on that. So we'll call the regular meeting to order at 6:10 p.m. And we'll start with public input. If you are in the room, we'll give you the first choice to speak. Please come forward. You can introduce yourself, say which town you're from, and you have about 3 minutes.
Thank you. I think I like to stand. Yeah, this is the second time I've been to the board. I came in November, talking about a perspective, a perspective action to have members that are Souhegan graduates, some interesting Souhegan graduates, come back and do like a little forum or a round table of discussion of life after Souhegan. And I still think it's a good idea. I changed, if you remember, back in December, I talked about having a single person come back. But I think after talking with Stephanie, she said, may want to consider this or that, come back in January. But I like the idea of a roundtable forum of getting, maybe a doctor, a lawyer. Right now I have Courtney Bankard coming back at some time to discuss her life and what she did after Souhegan. But, we can work with the community council. I'm also a community council member, and I have not brought it up to their attention yet. So I still think it's a great idea. I would like to set this up. We could do it for at a spotlight session that Souhegan has during a particular month. But also, if you all agree to this to proceed on, I would like to have a member of either the faculty or the board or somebody to work with. Because I am sort of a private citizen. I don't want to come busting in here and do it by myself. Or I could ask somebody from community council to help.
All right, thank you. I think any coordination or interest of this we would have to talk with Dana, like to make sure that they're in touch with the right person, right timing, right
Yep.
placement of the work. So can I speak, maybe I'll work with Mike and talk with Dana and
Okay.
I'll circle back with you.
Great. Yeah, I just think it'd be a good idea, or, for the students to see, what graduates have done and with their lives after Souhegan. And I'm real excited about doing this.
Can I make a quick comment?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, I love the idea. I would also, I think it'd be interesting to see, you said interesting people at the beginning, and I think a variety of different backgrounds. So that especially if you're looking at juniors and seniors who are thinking, what is my future gonna look at, seeing a whole variety of options that
Right.
they don't necessarily think about would be, is awesome.
Great, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I just said lawyer, Indian chief, Native American chief. But, yeah, that will happen.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
That
Thank you,
it?
Mr. Luke.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
carry on. I'll, look forward to hearing from you then,
Right.
about who I can contact.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else in the room for public comments? Mr. Mayhew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dan Bayou. I'm from Southern County Wilkins Road in Amherst. And I just wanted to, as things are coming to a close for this year, as we get closer to the election, I wanted to just explain something that I said earlier in the year and kind of let you in on through the lens, see it through the lens that I see it through. Just you bear with me for a moment. Myths are essential in our world because they provide a shared ethos, reinforcing collective identity, values, and purpose within our organization, community, or nation. They serve us as cultural glue that binds us that binds individuals through common narratives, offering continuity between the past, present, and future. Myths help shape norms, guide behavior, and create a sense of belonging, making them a vital tool for social cohesion. Moreover, myths often convey deeper truths, even when they are not literally factual. They provide moral lessons, inspire action, and foster resilience in challenging times. For example, the myth of the self-made person encourages hard work and perseverance, while the legend of Camelot reinforces ideals of leadership and justice. In schools, founding myths are about educational excellence and commitment to service, instill pride and a sense of duty among students and staff. Dedication to myths does not mean blind adherence to outdated or misleading stories. Instead, it requires understanding the symbolic power and ensuring that they evolve to remain relevant. Societies and organizations must periodically reassess their myths, preserving those that serve the common good while adapting or challenging those that no longer align with their core values. Ultimately, myths matter because they shape collective identity and aspirations. Without them, communities risk losing their sense of direction and unity. By thoughtfully engaging with and upholding the right myths, we reinforce the ideals that define who we are and what we strive to become. If you question the power of a myth, I challenge you to call an assembly at Clark Wilkins next December and expose the myth of a certain jolly old elf. Or step into the locker room before a football game and tell the players their dedication to their team and their school is based on a myth. Much of what we live for and are willing to die for is rooted in myth. It has been said that the two least democratic institutions are prisons and public schools. In 1992, Souhegan High School was built to challenge this notion. Consistent with the principles of the Coalition of Essential Schools, Souhegan established a democratic system that empowered administrators, staff, community members, and students to shape and implement policy on issues of importance to the Souhegan community without limitation. Additionally, the school introduced programs and policies that were at the time unique, ambitious, and risky, but they worked. Souhegan became a case study that schools across the country sought to emulate. Many of our neighboring communities still mirror the programs and policies that Souhegan pioneered more than 30 years ago. The most important aspect of a program is not only that it is a research-based best practice, but that it is well implemented, cohesive, and appropriate for the community and the students it serves. The CES central organization may be gone, but when something that worked for a long time and whose principles continue to be gold standard for schools around the country starts to fail, it's not always a failure of the model itself, but often a result of misunderstanding, complacency, or mismanagement. When we see the erosion of the principles that have served this community for so long, we are right to be defensive, to be guardians of the Souhegan way. As we discuss changing long-standing programs that have been emblematic of what makes Souhegan unique and special, we expect a deeper justification, and we think it's a good idea. Well, the program was unwieldy, or it's out of date. Meaningful change requires thoughtful reflection, a clear rationale, and a commitment to preserving the values like the Souhegan Six that have defined our school for decades. If tonight's discussion seems over the top for what may be a single program, please realize that it represents one more step in a gradual erosion of the principles that have defined Souhegan for decades. Remember that at one time, more than 80% of the people who chose Amherst as their home did so because of the myth of Souhegan High School. Each change may seem small in isolation, but collectively they reshape the identity and philosophy that has made this school exceptional. It is for these reasons that we unapologetically defend our myths, because they preserve the ethos that makes our school worth fighting for. It is those who criticize our community's devotion to the myth of Souhegan that I question, because without that devotion, how can we trust them to do what is best for our school and our community?
Thank you for your input. Is there anyone else in the room? Come on forward, introduce yourself. Sure. And just say where you're from.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Robert Hens, 38 South Road in Amherst. I come tonight to introduce myself. I did this at the previous meeting as well, so hopefully I don't bore people. Anyway, I've lived in town for about 8 years now. I've got 3 granddaughters in the school system, and I did a short term in about 2019-20 on the Amherst School Board. I'm ready to re-engage again, and today I filed my name for the Souhegan openings. If elected, I would certainly, I'm ready to listen, help, and make a difference. And you know, I've got some business experience. I'm retired military. Served in the Navy for 22 years. I've been in operations for the past 20+ years, working with, you know, leaders in various industries. So I think I can bring some value to the school board as well. So with that, I'd just like to, again, tell you I'm throwing my hat in the ring, and if you hear or see signs for Bob Hens, that's me. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Is there anybody else in the room? Would you like to come forward and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Emma Chrisman. I'm a citizen of Amherst. I'm a senior at Souhegan High School, and I just wanted to bring forth to the board the importance of hiring a new social studies teacher. I know last fall we had the tragedy of losing Tom Sawyer, and I bring forth the concern to the board that if we don't hire another social studies teacher, the electives at Souhegan will be greatly affected. My qualifications for coming forth is that I've gone through Souhegan for the past 4 years. I've pursued many different academic endeavors, going up into the AP and college level with AP Chem, AP Calc, AP Bio, AP US History, AP Lang. I'm in dual enrollment ethics, AP Understanding Psychology dual enrollment. And my example for this is Phil Estabrook. I know that we are allowing the sophomores to take AP US History this year and giving him 2 sessions. And I just want to express to the board how important I feel that is, because the sophomores, he has a bunch of data, obviously he's not here right now, that the sophomores score better. And as someone who took AP US History my junior year, I feel I would have done much better taking the AP exam my sophomore year, because I wouldn't have had stress for the SATs. And then as a junior, we have senioritis in college. So allowing younger students like sophomores to take the APs, they're gonna be those students that step up and exemplify the Souhegan Six, and they're gonna have that passion to learn. And I think that's really important, because as I've noticed, Souhegan increases the required classes for like the 2028 grade. I noticed that they had 24 required credits, which is more than I'd have to graduate. I noticed that restriction might cause people to not be able to pursue passions of their own. And I think that's a vital thing that we have at Souhegan, is allowing students to continue to pursue what they care about. And I know that as someone who's pursued a bunch of different electives, that's been the most important value for me. And if we take APUSH and restrict it for only the juniors and seniors, that's also restricting the amount of APs we allow Souhegan, and Souhegan doesn't allow all the APs. A couple examples from the College Board that they have is AP Seminar, AP Music Theory, AP Pre-Calc, AP African American Studies, AP US Government and Politics, and many more. You might ask, why is a senior coming to the board? I'm gonna be leaving in 5 months, but it's because I've truly been impacted by my Souhegan education, and I do have some regrets, and those regrets are strictly just academical, because I wish that as a sophomore, I could have jumped right into those AP classes to further my education and maybe looked more prestigious on my college applications. And I just wanna advocate for the underclassmen, and I recognize the life and soul that we lost in Tom Sawyer. But I know that if we continue to spread the current social studies teachers thin now to cover and make, for example, Phil Estabrook teach economics, I don't think we're gonna be giving the students the high quality education that Souhegan strives to do. And I just want to say that I might have other seniors that support and agree with me, including Colin Patterson, Caitlin Riding, Tim Whedon, Emmilton, Morgan Hallett, Emily Facey, just a couple of examples. And I want to say that if we don't replace this position at Souhegan, students will lose important opportunities. And I think that, I know that the budget is tight, it always is, but I just want to bring forth the importance of reviewing that and the importance of having a new hire. Because if we have these staff members cut short, then the connections within teachers will also be cut short. And I know with someone who's been truly touched and had a changed life because of the instructors here at Souhegan, if we don't continue to have that philosophy, I'm not sure what will happen with the underclassmen, because I know that my greatest value when I leave these doors in 5 months is the relationships I've had with my teachers. And I think that that's the most important thing that Souhegan needs to be giving to the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room? Anyone in the room? Is there anyone on the line who's raised their hand?
No hands raised.
No hand raised. All right, we'll have a second public input at the end of the meeting. So we'll move on to the financial audit presentation. Amy, you have an introduction on the meeting?
Tonight we have Matthew Murray from National 2K who conducted our audit. This is the 3rd year that we've had the pleasure of working with their firm. The process started in September, I believe. We had some documents that were sent electronically, and then we had a field visit. So Matthew worked very closely with the business office staff, particularly Katie Hannon, who is our budget director, Lisa Shadroy, who is our CPA accountant, Kim Fredette, our payroll specialist, and Lindsay Santana, our bookkeeper, and Karen Sainsbury, our accounts payable specialist. And they really did a great job. I'm hoping Matthew will agree in cooperating and getting them all the documents that they needed. So I think it was a smooth process, and we're happy that we're presenting earlier than we have in the past. So that was a goal of ours, and we were able to meet that. So without further ado, I'll introduce Matthew to present the financial statements of the district.
Matthew Marty from Vashon Cooperative Company. So most important thing to the board, to the residents of Amherst and Mount Vernon is the opinion on the financial statements. And the district received an unmodified opinion on its financial statements, basically meaning that there are no material misstatements within the financial statements, and all the required disclosures to the items that are on the face of the financial statements are in the notes to the financial statements. I'll touch on now the second most important thing to everybody is how did the district perform on a budgetary basis? You want to make sure that you're not raising more money in the form of taxation, because that is the largest source of revenue for school districts in the state that isn't getting fully utilized. So on a budgetary basis, the school district underexpended its budget by about $913,000, and that represents about 4.5% of the total budget overall. I've seen it down lower than 1%. I've seen it as high as 8%. Overwhelming majority of school districts in the state that we audit fall in that 2 to 4-ish%. So Souhegan is right in line with that, 0.5%-ish. So you can actually be thankful that they're using their financial resources the way that they should. They're not raising excess money. And that's important for the taxpayers, because we as residents of my town as well, everybody's concerned about the tax rate. If you look at the statement of net position, I'll touch on this real quick. High level overview is you see that you have a deficit net position, and the overwhelming majority of that is related to the unrestricted deficit. That is driven by the district being a contributing member to the retirement system in the form of the pension and OPEB liabilities. And out of a $14.3 million deficit, about 16.5 of that is related to pension and OPEB liabilities and the related deferred inflows and outflows of resources. And all right, to touch upon what Amy was talking about with the business office, this year, the week before we even were scheduled to come out, Lisa had actually uploaded just about everything that we needed to our secure portal. We use that as a transmitting device to keep everybody's data secure. And when we were able to start the audit on Monday morning, I think we just had a couple of minor requests back and forth through email, get them to upload it to the portal, and had very little in the way of, okay, you know, we've historically asked for these documents, you haven't given it to us. It was extremely well organized, set up so that broken down by, okay, here's all the information for the general fund, here's the backup to all the assets, all the liabilities that are recorded on the financials, in the financial records. Like I touched upon this 2 years ago, first year that we came in as the school district's auditors, we communicated back with Katie at that time regarding student activity funds. And the district maintains them throughout the course of the year with assets and liabilities, because it is easier to see that level of detail is, okay, here's how much each individual student activity fund has. And what the SAU staff has actually done for us, which has been extremely helpful, is gone through and said, okay, this is what the balances were last year. This is really the fund balance amount, because statement, I gotta remember, 84 changed how student activity funds were reported. So they've done all the work to create this is the revenues for the year. These are the expenditures for the year. And for a lot of the school districts that we do, unless they're maintaining it outside of the accounting system, which your SAU staff has them maintain it inside the Infinite Visions accounting system. Unless they're doing it in like QuickBooks or Quicken, something like that, a lot of times what we get is just here's the asset balance, here's the liability balance, and then we have to go through and evaluate what the actual ins and outs are for the course of the year. So the SAU staff actually does that for us, and we're extremely grateful for that. And then we just do some level of a comparison as to, all right, this is what the, so that we have a level of comfort for what they're reporting as the revenues and expenditures. We're evaluating, here's everything that cleared the bank during the course of the year. Here's what you said was outstanding last year. Here's what you said was outstanding this year. And tie that into, this is what the revenues and expenditures that you reported are. And we don't have anything in the way of material differences from that. Touching on student activity funds, one of the things that it's the most common write-up that we have for student activity funds, and we did it as management communication to the board, is student activity fund deposits. They're outside of the control of the SAU staff. They're handled at the actual district themselves. And during the year when we tested some of the actual receipts coming in and the items being deposited, what we're looking for are, good internal controls. In testing some of them this year, we noted that there were 2 instances where there wasn't dual authorization on the deposit form. So why we like to see that is one person who fills out the form and says, this is what I collected, a second person verifying it before it's actually going to the bank. So you get those checks and balances in place. And then we had 2 other instances where we noted that within the week of receipt, it didn't make it to the bank. It made it the following week, and we kind of reiterate and communicate best practice is to make sure that the money that you're getting within 1 week makes it to the bank by at least Friday. You don't want cash checks hanging around to be susceptible to theft, misuse, anything like that. That was brought to SAU staff, SAU office staff as soon as we encountered it. And then right afterwards, they actually I believe that they went out and they reiterated to all the schools that it is important to make sure that you do these things and make sure that you have deposits done within the week of receipt. Anybody have any specific questions on the financials?
Yeah, and I'll just elaborate on that, that last point a little bit. So yes, we discovered that, we've had some office staff turnover at the schools. So we noted, it was noted in all of the school districts. So we held a training at the Brick School for all staff and had my staff there and went through the findings and went through best practices. We created a shared document for all of the office staff to be able to share how they process items to be able to bring everybody on board as a team to be able to support each other. One item to note is with the with untimely deposits, we're asking staff now to document when they receive any cash or checks, because sometimes the date on the check might be prior, so they might actually receive it and deposit it on time, but the date of the check is earlier. So in order to have documentation that they are doing things according to the requirements, we're asking them to document that. So we're hoping that will move forward. And then I think there was some confusion on the dual signatures with some of the turnover. So, but we appreciated that. We held the training, and we also are having our CPA, Lisa Shagroy, go out periodically to all of the districts to do spot checks to try to catch anything and just keep everybody accountable to this important requirement.
Sometimes it's literally luck of the draw about, we're going through and we're haphazardly selecting items. I just had a presentation on Tuesday night, same thing. Some of the schools, fine. Other ones that we came across, it was the money sat for 10 days, 12 days before it actually got deposited. So it is the most common thing that we find. We try to make sure that we communicate it, and we do understand that, yes, it is part of the district's financial statements. It's really outside of the control of the individuals who are responsible for your financial record keeping. So we at least try to reiterate it to the board that it's not the SAU staff, it's not, the school district finance staff that's actually doing it. It's somewhere outside.
On that topic, I got a question, I think you've answered it. In your report on internal control based on audit, basic financial statements, you have the sentence, during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls that we consider to be material weaknesses. In the other letter, you write opportunity for strengthening internal controls and operating efficiency, so that's what you're talking about, is this particular point. So while not a material deficiency, it is an opportunity for improvement. Is that how you marry the
Yes.
two statements in the two letters?
Yep, so one is we refer to it as a management letter. And it's something that we feel is worthy of the board knowing, but doesn't rise to the level of either a significant deficiency in internal control or material weakness in internal control. So this is worthy of you knowing, but doesn't affect anything as far as internal controls over financial reporting.
Thanks.
Easy. Anyone else have questions? You know,
If you do, feel
Thank
free to
you.
reach out to Amy and I can answer them.
no, we appreciate, you know, the work that you do. It's always good to have third party verify the work, the good work that we always believe happens at our SAU. So, you know, it's great to have that verified as well. So thank you very much.
And that's the circuit, right? Is that it? For-
No.
No,
One
the
more.
SAU, I gotta figure out when the SAU board meeting
Where'd it
is.
go?
We'll let you know.
February?
You just missed it.
20th.
We had all those minutes.
Yeah, February 20th. I'll send you an email.
So double dip.
12 minutes, that's what it was. Fine.
Double dip.
All right, community council update, Maya.
Yes, so the student activities committee put on a Grinch night the Friday before, holiday break at the Mount Vernon Village School. This was formerly known as the Polar Express night, however, they just changed up the movie a little bit. Victoria Parisi with the PTSA is planning a candidates night, along with students on council to ask questions to the candidates, so that is in the works. A student representative has been confirmed for the book reconsideration committee. Proposals in council right now, we have two proposals in discussion. The first one is the Savers of the Month proposal. This proposal, essentially is going to try to bring back, a Student of the Month program that is, more in depth than the previous Student of the Month proposal. Students of the month, there would be one for each grade, and they would be nominated by their teachers based off of Souhegan mission statement and Souhegan 6 values. If there's any questions about that, I did bring the proposal, so I can answer those. The second proposal we have was brought by a member on council and, two peers in their grade, and it is regarding off-campus for sophomores and also allowing sophomores a free period. This proposal essentially, if passed, would allow sophomores to go off campus and have a free period the second semester of their sophomore year, as long as they're in good standing. Communications committee is looking to continue to refine forums, it's an ongoing discussion in council. And then we need another community council, community rep, either from Mount Vernon or Amherst. I don't know if there's
Mount
any
Vernon.
updates
Yeah,
on this, but. And then lastly, band and choir have their small ensemble concert on February 12th. I would highly recommend going. It's gonna be a good show.
excellent. Thank you. So the students and the candidates night, so I brought that to community council 2 weeks ago, and there were a group of students absolutely interested and actually very excited about it. I was approached by the PTSA president, Victoria Parisi, saying, hey, PTSA are going to actually do this. And I thought, this is a great way for the community council to work with them, because as a school board, we really shouldn't be involved in the candidate process. So as Victoria's excited to work with the community council kids. She has some names and emails already that she's going to start working with them, and I think they're looking at before break having it during, I think, Fame Fest week. So that's how that came about. Any other questions for Maya?
I have one about the Savers of the month. What is different about this proposal that might overcome what was fatal in the previous implementation? Because that was previously implemented, and as I recall, for a variety of reasons, they found to be sort of either ineffective or unwieldy. I don't really exactly remember why it failed. So what's the energy or the thinking as to why this might be an improvement upon the last implementation?
Yeah, so we actually had last year, a proposal brought to council to formally end the Student of the Month. Student of the Month had run like, I think it started about 4 years ago. And it kind of eventually just petered out. The way it was structured, within the proposal was not given a lot of detail and it was not very clear. The outline of it, they had students voting on, who the Students of the Month were gonna be, which for a lot of students felt like it ended up being a popularity contest. The students who received Student of the Month, that award was given to them during Spotlight. And they did not enjoy having to like walk up in front of their grade to receive an award, especially since it was voted on by their grade. The way that I restructured this proposal was I made sure that it was teachers nominating the students, as well as making it clear that students would not be accepting the award during Saber Spotlight time, as well as just giving a very clear outline of how the proposal would run into the future, and making sure that after I'm graduated and after I'm gone, this proposal is something that will stand the test of time and will be able to continue on.
Great, thanks for the perspective.
Any other
I'm
questions?
very curious to see what the council comes back to thinking on the sophomore's freedom proposal, for lack of a.
Yeah, that barely had a start, and I think it'll be discussed more most likely Monday night. At the night meeting, if that's only if there's time after your proposal is voted on.
Yeah,
If not, it'll be the following Monday, so it might be a few weeks till we hear
Look
more.
forward to that.
And I think there's gonna be a lot of discussion on that one. So. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around or head off, depending if you have homework and practice. Okay, going on, we have our consent agenda. There's draft minutes for December 5th, January 14th, board meeting, and January 14th, public hearing. Are there any questions on any of those or anything that needs to be pulled?
You just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Right here. The fund transfers.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up those in a second.
Oh, they're on the
The- the-
consent. Did you not mention?
No,
that?
no, I was right now, I'm just asking about the minutes. I'm just gonna go,
Oh,
anything that needs to
Sorry.
be pulled, minutes being pulled, or we're good? Okay, budget transfer request. So the first one is about an out of district, money to help out of district placement. If there's any questions on that one? Seeing none. The second one is on light bulbs,
I have a question about that one, but
Yes.
it may be a non-public question.
security.
Well, there's some board notes that, you know. I don't know. I guess I would leave it to the administration to, is that something that can be discussed in public or not? Is it a non-public matter?
If you want more background than the notes, it really is a non-public.
But we had a non-public to discuss it previously in the year.
Okay, I mean, I'm not concerned about the transfer. And I'm not gonna hold it up I need those information. I'm just curious to remind myself, maybe everyone here, of what it is. So if I could just maybe hold that question until we do have a non-public quickly afterwards.
Yeah, we have one
Yeah.
scheduled.
All right, we
We
can
have
add that.
scheduled
We can
anyway?
add, we can add that
I'm
as
okay asking
security.
the question. I'm not gonna hold that up. There's no answer that you give me that's gonna hold this up. I just want to know.
We'll bring
What
that up.
was this about again, and where do we stand in it, and all of that? Okay, is that fair?
Perfect.
Great.
Any other questions on the transfers? If, this one is, we have a, $4,000 we received from the Barker Foundation for, the robotics, first robotics. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate the support of all of our student activities. And then there's the policies, and this would be, our second read of them. So it's ACN accommodation of lactation needs, DJ purchasing, EHAB data governance and security, GBCD background investigation and criminal history records check, JKAA use of restraints and seclusion, and KCD public gifts and donations. So if there are no questions, I'll take a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. O'Keefe, you have a second? Second by Ms. Guley Zimmerman. There's no other discussion. Those in favor?
Can we say thank you to the Barker Foundation?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Extra discussion.
Yes.
Very generous. And they have robotics has their, comedy night,
Yes.
Saturday night, the reminder,
This
talking about
Saturday.
raising money for First Robotics.
Yes. That's another activity. So that did pass today, if you caught that. So thank you. Reports received. We have a facility report, the treasurer's report, November, December. There's enrollment data. The school year calendar. Is there anything you want to bring up about school year calendar?
Just what's in the board notes at this moment in time.
Okay. Any questions on that?
So the facilities report, and I know it's not
Yep.
included in there, but the skylight sort of status, where are we at with that? Do we have an update that Roger maybe?
Yeah, we do have an update and we talked about it at Tuesday's senior leadership meeting. I'm gonna ask Steve and Amy to kind of weigh in on that. We'll start with Steve. There's a little bit of commentary in board notes, but we can get into a little bit more there if everyone wants to kind of check that out. And then, but Steve, you want to start, and then Amy, a little color commentary on this?
Sure. Phase 2 was formerly known as phase 1, and that is the skylights over the stairwells, including the common area in the library media center. If you remember, complication was having the skylight integrated with a fire suppression system. We do have a different design in which the bulkheads are no longer connected to the skylights. They are separate. They're still connected to the fire suppression, but the skylights will be just stationed, just positioned skylights. So we did get finally the design from Banwell and the costing by DEW. In order to do now this is the skylight portion, right? Not the bulkhead, because we're now separating them. The skylights above the stairwell and the skylight in the library media center came up in a significant cost. And the whole total phase 3 of the package is in excess of $1 million to take care of skylights. And so one thing is we've talked about this week, just because we've done a lot of facility work. One of our other districts is the impact of natural light on education. We like that. But what we've sent Roger back to do is take a look at what it would be if we didn't put skylights into the stairwells. There really is no educational benefit of skylights on the stairwells. We do have to put, because at night there is no light coming in, so they have to be lit anyway through LED. So we're wondering if that could be a significant savings, because the entire package, and we've got one more phase, right? Phase 1 is done. This is phase 2, used to be phase 1. It was over $400,000 for this portion of the bid, which Mike, Amy, and I, and Roger are taking it back and just saying in the title, and in the total complexity of this project, that's significant. And is it possible to not do the skylights in the stairwell? So once we get that price, we will come back to the board and have the board discuss that change, because that's a design change from the original 1992. In talking with the principal, Dana's back there. Dana and I and Mike discussed this today. And we really think that there really is no educational benefit of the skylights. They'll be lit anyway. We think it economically, we think it may be insignificant, our fiduciary due diligence to go with that path. But this will be in conjunction with the board once we have a second costing. If it's a negligible cost, because Mike and Steele have to go in, negligible, we can talk about it, but at least our due diligence is to find, is there a way that we can be more stewardship of the dollar on this one, because we're not getting an educational benefit.
But we would have the skylight over the media.
Right.
Which will allow natural light to come in.
And that's where it does impact the culture, climate, the education stairwells.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And what's the time frame for this to come back?
We really, he's reaching out ASAP, so by the
He
next,
already did.
by the next, we already did, so by next board meeting. Which we're trying to get squeeze one more board meeting, and we'll find out about that later in February, and hopefully we'll have more, because we'd like to get moving. But we also, we think this is our fiduciary, we want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're being mindful of the taxpayer and using every dollar the highest value, and I'm not sure skylights and the stairwell are the highest value we have right now in 2025. I agree, but ultimately it'll be in conjunction with the board discussion.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Mr. Leonard?
Just to then. Phase two, is phase two now gonna become phase three, and meaning, again, phase three can we continue to push, phase one is done. Okay, I don't wanna confuse the phases,
No,
but in the
great.
current framework, phase one is done. This piece is still due diligence is still being performed, there's a third piece.
Yes.
So, does it make any sense to continue to do the third piece while we're figuring out what would then be the last piece?
We're so close to this, we're literally a couple, 3 weeks away of having a
Sorting it out.
proposal brought here, and then getting done, so we really want to get this piece done. But yes, if it was pushing out months for a whole new redesign that was complexity, we'd be with you. But we're not sure if that's the case, but we'll let you know in a couple, 3 weeks, but our
Fair.
hope is to get this one done. And then continue with phase three,
Okay,
but we'll keep you posted.
thanks.
I'm assuming we're gonna have to start ordering stuff quickly, so it's installed this upcoming summer, and that's the reason for the urgency.
Yeah, you got
Which
it.
is why we might need a board meeting quickly, so we can.
Yeah, right, and we get some other things on the agenda later, we're gonna have to talk about board meetings.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Any other questions on the reports? I do want to bring up the letter to Kelly Braley from the NHIAA, thanking her for all her extra hard work. And a lot of this has to do with, correct me if I'm wrong, but has to do with her reaching out to Nashville when they lost access to their playing fields and coordinating with them and giving them the space to.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, there's that, and then the second piece is Kelly is hosting referee education courses here on Sundays. And she allows our facility to be used so referees can, train on how for the sport of basketball to be coached up and learn that craft. And she organizes attracting athletes to do it. So she is doing some things above and beyond her job responsibilities, and the NHI just sent a note to acknowledge that. And I think it's a reflection of the type of, person she is and the AD that she is, and how she's thought of it at the state level. And so I just thought you guys should be aware of that.
Oh, thank you to Kelly for all of that. Mr. Glover?
Yeah, just a note, an observation, the enrollment data.
Yep.
Well, the principal's report has enrollment data. They're separated by 1 day, and they're also different by one student, so.
Timing.
So I presume that an 11th grader showed up on January the 2nd, who wasn't there in the rolls on January 1st. Right? Well, data's good. It's
Timing's
just
everything.
interesting, in 1 day, the data can change,
I think
so.
that's my friend's son, so yes. I think that's the right timing.
That's fine.
Just moved.
All right.
And the principal's report is in there for information purposes, and they'll be here next time to have more discussion on it. This is so we have time to review it in order to be prepared to ask questions. So moving on to graduation requirements, is there any particular thing you want to speak to first, or do you?
No, I think we're gonna have, all be available for some conversations as the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and the principal.
Mhm.
However, you had a chance to take a look at the memo. We wanted to kind of give you guys a chance to look at it. I'm not hoping, I'm asking to have a motion to approve that this evening. And, you know, you and I talked about facilitating a conversation around that.
Yep.
And so if there's some questions that the board has for us, we can help contribute to the conversation. And that's where we're at. But the end outcome is we would like a motion to approve this
Tonight,
tonight.
So I'm thinking, I know there's two pieces that have been outstanding in this discussion. One of them is, have we approved the writing course? The other one is, have we had the discussion and understanding and approved the change to the JLP? And do we agree that it's a removal from graduation requirements? Or do we leave it in, understanding that it's embedded in the class? Those are the two pieces that really, I think, are up for discussion more than anything. Because I think the motion that was made back in October to accept the graduation and requirements increasing to 24 credits with minor changes. And it's in Dana's memo, it's in minutes that I have read. Looks like we already voted on and accepted the increase to 24 credits. So I think it just comes down to those two pieces. So I'd like to keep the conversation, those two pieces. And then we can explore anything from there. So, Mr. Vadu, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. I went back and listened to the meeting where we discussed. We've got the matrix, the side-by-side comparison of what we do now and what was proposed. And the motion was kind of what was written in the minutes, may not have captured what we actually voted on, because there was a discussion where Dana clarified, so this is just the 24 credits and what's required by law. And it was clarified by everybody in the room, including Mr. Glover, Ms. Peters, that this included the matrix. And it was a 7-0 vote. And it was pretty clear at the time, I don't think there was any ambiguity that this included the whole matrix. I think it still leaves open the question of the JLP, because that was not on the matrix and it was not part of the discussion.
So I think the writing course, I believe the writing course was
Right,
approved.
course
And
was
I
part of
just
it,
want to
so,
make
yes.
sure everyone is on board with that. That was my first piece. The JLP and the question on
can I
the
just make, before we go to
Yes.
JLP,
Yeah.
on the writing course,
Mhm.
I remember, I mean, still today, my good concern with the writing course is that it's remedial. And.
But it's not remedial. If you remember that discussion.
Hold on, let me finish, please. Please, let me finish the thought. But what was persuasive about it was that even strong writers can benefit from an intensive writing class. So if we're taking the students where they are, even the most proficient and highest performing students can benefit from a high intensity writing course. So they elevate their own game. And there was some assurance that they'll take the students where they come and they'll try to advance the students as far as they can in the semester that they have them with. That was what was persuasive to me. In bringing on the writing course, even though the path to get there was frustrating. Right, it came under the auspices of students aren't performing well in writing real large, and we need a mandatory writing course to do some corrective action. That's the origin story. So just to reiterate, kind of going back in time, Dan. So I trust and believe in that, and
And we're gonna have a presentation about the writing course.
yes, coming, I don't know if it's
Coming up.
today or next month.
Because they have some
Oh, it's
information out
February.
first semester.
Yeah,
Which is great.
just a quick pause on that. We have a series of presentations coming up, writing, science, math. So it will be March, April, May,
Great.
so one each month.
Fantastic.
All right,
Awesome.
Thank you.
so
All right, so I will say the writing course is in, approved. Moving on, JLP.
Or we can ratify, I mean,
We can, and I think in the end, we'll do a motion. I just, unless you want to split them up and go ahead and. Because I was thinking, if we can satisfy what's going on at JLP, we can make one motion
Okay,
and move forward from there. So the JLP, I think the confusion with JLP, I went back and I listened to hours of video. I read minutes upon minutes, I read documents. And where I think the confusion came was things that were presented to us, the side-by-side comparison, the program of studies, JLP was just never mentioned. So a lot of us made assumptions that it was still there as a graduation requirement. It just was not mentioned. So I would like to clarify where it is and what we agreed to. A lot of discussion that's been had is people are interested to make sure it still exists, it still happens. So the question is, we want to say we want to keep it as a graduation requirement. We agree that it's embedded in a class because we feel that the research is being taught, the process is being taught, it's being reviewed in multiple steps, and the kids are still doing the 6+ page paper in the end. Two papers in the end.
2 3-page or 2 6-page?
6 pages. With more guidance that was provided before. We can say it still is a graduation requirement. It doesn't have to be on a transcript, check the box, but we can say we want to keep it there. We agreed having it embedded because we feel it's being done with more rigor, more authentically in many ways. So that's the discussion I just want to have. Are we okay with it being embedded in the class? Do you want to keep it as a graduation requirement, or do we want to have it removed as a graduation requirement? That's what I'm. Mr. Video?
On the history of it, I mean, it's been around for a long time, and in 2018, 2019, I believe there was a push to revise it. And at first, from what I read, it was pretty much just administrators and teachers who were involved in the process, and they realized this is Souhegan, we should include students, and they brought in a couple of students, and there was a robust program, a review of the program and what it was about. And they changed from the junior research project to the junior learning project. What I want to know is what happened between 2018 and 2019 when this was last revised, and what caused it to be revised again, and why did we go from a project-based learning format with interdisciplinary subjects, topics that could be selected and reviewed by multiple departments, instructors from multiple departments, and why did it become just a world studies based project, and why it wasn't kind of integrated with the senior project, and who was involved in the evaluation, and why was that process chosen?
So there was a discussion, and I'm looking for the principal's report where Dana did a somewhat lengthy, I think that was that May meeting, I think. May 2024, hold on. Yes. That Dana did a lot of work explaining JLP and how they got to it and why. So it had to do with the dean of faculty, world studies teachers worked together, 6 of them in total. There was a consensus that the best interest of student learning in the JLP remain a core part of world studies, but it didn't continue as a graduation requirement. It goes on and on about it's important to have, but what they were finding is that the kids weren't learning how to actually do research skills thoroughly. So they wanted to bring that back into English class. And then it became the topics, and the teachers were feeling that the topics were, when the student can pick whatever topic they want, then we don't have necessarily, the teachers weren't feeling they had the expertise to then review whether the students were writing accurately, what research, if it was done accurately, were their sources done thoroughly and appropriately, or if they had it within the world studies, they could then assess whether they were doing that work with rigor and authenticity, if I'm correct. And
I remember that, but I don't.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And again, we're going back to 2022, 2021, when it started, and 2022, when we first had this conversation. So we're going back a long time. And the reason that it came up as a focus for the school to work on was because with the addition of Elizabeth Charbonneau as the humanities domain leader, staff in that department raised it as a continual pain point. There was a lot of iterations over time. And the staff felt like this is enough, we haven't cracked yet. Jeannie Sturgis was an instructional coach here at the time, who was at one point the JRP, JLP coordinator. And there was a lot of collaboration between Jeannie and Elizabeth and the teachers at the time to talk about some of the flaws with what was happening and what needed to go on to make it better. There was a lot of talk about how we were asking students to do something, applying skills that they hadn't developed yet. And that was a problem that needed to be addressed. Part of the issue was, really needing to, instruction to help students address this idea of rigor in research. Greater focus on social studies standards and skills. And how that was always really meant to be the focus. And I don't know, I wasn't here in 2018, I wasn't here in 2019, but I'm relying on the people that were, Jeannie and the staff members. That wasn't happening, we weren't executing that. That wasn't the reality for the students that we were seeing. And so there was a lot of work that happened, you know, starting in 2021, talking about, you know, short-term goals around equity. What agreements could we come up with as a staff? Calibrating, and really leaning on the institutional knowledge of the folks that have been here doing the work for a long time. And that's how we got here. You know, if the interest is, you know, the primary interest is we need students to be proficient at research and writing and communicating, because those are things that we have a deep value on at Souhegan. For kids, not just to be able to complete their senior project, but certainly the JLP is a step there, because that's where they're doing the research, but also beyond us. We felt that this was a necessary change. The other piece that I know that was talked about a lot was the amount of instructional time that we were spending on one paper. And this notion that if we're going to dedicate 25 class periods to work around the JLP, let's leverage the fact that we want to take this really meaningful experience and connect it to the content that we're delivering, right? And so that's how we ended up with two papers, one in English, one in social studies, one that's focusing on the really important skills of literary analysis that students are always working on, K-9 to 12, with a particular focus in 11. And then also social studies, the world studies content, right? So how can we take kids and this project that we feel really matters, this cornerstone experience, and make it align more with our graduation competencies, our expectations for what it means to be a learner here, right? So taking knowledge constructor skills in those two content areas, as well as critical thinking skills, as well as the effective communicator skills, and packaging all that together, because that's where they're executing the work.
Thank you.
Follow-up?
Yeah, you can have a follow-up, and then I want to see if anyone else has questions. Quick follow-up.
Yeah, so what I understood, it was a super curricular program. It wasn't supposed to be, it wasn't it was managed through the World Studies program, but it wasn't part of the World Studies programs. How did it become embedded in the World Studies program? And what were the best practices? Research that said this was probably the best practice. We don't want it to be super curricular anymore. We want it to be.
I don't know a time that it ever existed that way. So since my time at Souhegan,
So before you were here,
that
there
is
was-
not what it was. And
Yeah.
I have to tell you, like, I don't think my conversations with Jeannie as we were going through this, that's not what it was. So I'm not saying it was never that way. I'm saying
That's why it was.
from where this group has picked up, that's not what we came into. We didn't come into it
So
with that.
You know, that gets back to the contention that this is something that kind of got lost institutional knowledge wise or whatever, somewhere down the pathway, or it was miscommunicated to me what this was intended to be and why it was above a separate requirement above the class work. So it's to say that it kind of struck me weird that this was suddenly now just embedded in the World Studies program. It's no longer a JLP, it's just a research paper that's part of this course. I mean, you should have the research, that should have been part of the course anyway. And the JLP should have been something additional to that to warrant an extra check on the transcript. So that's why I'm kind of like, why are we discussing this if it was always part of the World Studies program? And did something get lost along the way? And are we?
It could be that
what's
the
disconnect
transition from JRP to JLP was that.
I would say a piece of the issues that the timing of teaching kids to do research and a research paper. It kind of coincided the time they were doing the JLP, and I think it wasn't being done with rigor for a while. Because the kids were writing a paper without the background knowledge of it, and then I think putting it into the classroom. I mean, whether, we were involved with that discussion or not, I think it improves the rigor. I think it improves the authenticity of the piece, although, it is different. But
The challenge with these, I'll use that language, super curricular tasks, is that if nobody owns them, nobody owns them. So if we want to teach kids how to research and write, we know that best practice is to do that in the classroom with the authentic tasks where they need to do that. Or else, where are they learning the skills?
yeah, because it used to literally be written outside and but it would be, I would say, graded by 3 different teachers that had nothing to do with that student in a class. So I think it was one of those extras that the teachers did, so something changed somehow. But here is where we are today, so I just want to focus on where are people in standing? Are we okay leaving it as a graduate question? Do you care if it's as a graduation requirement or removed? But I think the idea that it's embedded in a class is there to stay, because I think it is being done better, but that's my opinion. So anybody else? Hold on 1 second. Is there anybody else first? No, go ahead, Mr. Glover.
Part of me sort of feels like that this is remedial, and maybe that's what's needed for where students are these days. Attention, academic stamina. I mean, when Mike Berry, the principal, talked about that, and maybe even as superintendent, that has been with social media and the outside world, that is lower now than it has been in the past. Focus that comes with that. There's a lot of externalities that are depressed scores, not just here, a lot of places. And I feel like we used to have this mythical, to talk about one of our public commenters, view of what JLP was like, we have masters who can, outside of their normal coursework, wrap their brains around this thing and shoot out this amazing work. That's and maybe it's just not feasible. Maybe there's not a bandwidth among the staff. Maybe there's not a wherewithal among the student body writ large. So I'm not opposed to making sure that our students have the basic foundational research skills locked down on their 11th grade so that they can perform on their senior project, which is an independent extracurricular event prior to graduation. So I'm willing to follow your lead on that, I guess, and the administration lead. I wonder what I'd like to see in the spirit of flexibility, and we talked about that, is for, say, higher achieving students or any student who has the motivation and wherewithal at this point in their student life to be able to use the research from their JLP experience and fold it into their senior project. And the challenge right now, I think functionally, maybe this is something for you and your team to work on, is that process of senior project, as far as I understand, doesn't really formally begin until senior year. So there would have to be some kind of communication and transition period to allow students to know that this could transition to that, and if they were interested in that, let's say they were passionate about a topic or something, or they're high achieving students, like clearly our public speaker was. Taking all these classes, you could knock this thing out of the way over a couple of years with rigor and do excellent work. You can do your senior project presentation theoretically, first month of your senior year and just be done with that. And use it in your portfolio for colleges potentially. But I'd like to see us grow in that way. That's not the way it is now, but if JLP could have a pathway for a student who wanted to traverse that path, then I'm okay with you modifying it to meet the needs of the day as you see it.
Yeah, I would love to just respond to a couple things. The new iteration of senior project will absolutely allow for that because what we're asking students to create as applied pieces, we've really broadened what they can do. So if they leaned heavily into some area that they really wanted to explore deeply academically, there's a much clearer pathway forward for that with senior project now, which is exciting. There's also an option for an honors option for the JLP. So in terms of it being remedial, it's not remedial. I think I understand what you're saying in terms of it being a formative experience that helps kids do better at senior project for sure. But I definitely don't think, that that the project in and of itself is remedial. I am getting messages from staff who want to say, I've been here for 13 years and JLP has been embedded in world studies since then.
Can I just add, to
It's a long
support that?
time going.
I just came across a program studies from 2008, 2009. And this clarifies it for me. The junior research project, the graduation requirement is a research writing process that culminates with a comprehensive research paper written in the spring of the junior year. As part of the world studies / world literature curriculum, students will gain research and writing skills that will aid them in the completion of this paper. In their final product, students will exhibit their knowledge of the academic learner expectations. So that answers.
Yeah.
Some of my question anyway.
All right. Any other comments?
I was just going
Ms.
to,
Peters.
before Dan did say it, I was going to say, I agree with a good deal of what Mr. Glover said in terms of the junior, the JLP preparing students for their senior project. Great if we can keep them rolling and make it a useful experience all the way through. I think everybody's on board with that. But I wanted to say, I don't see this as a remedial, like as we went through it last year, and again, I don't see it as a remedial work at all. That's just my 2 cents.
I don't see it as remedial either. I just want to understand, because I think taking something out of graduation requirements is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think it deserves a discussion, so.
So can I just ask an opinion real? You want to go ahead? I did, my opinion was, do we want JLP to be listed as a graduation requirement? Yay or nay? I had to take a,
I'm fine as we recommended pulling it out as a specific standalone.
Okay.
Graduation. I think times change and practices change, just like when the JLP was first initially presented and proposed. It was probably innovative at the time and times moved on. And we should be adapting. We should be relooking at this every 5 years to say, what's working, what's not? What should we be pivoting from? What's changed in the educational landscape that we need to refocus or put some attention towards? So that's all organic, natural stuff that should be occurring all by itself. And so when we started this conversation back in May, during that rather heated meeting, I have to be honest with you, Dan, I was kind of with you in terms of like making sure that the community had buy-in, they were fully on board and so forth and so on. So since then, I've had the opportunity to wash this through my community on multiple occasions. And everybody's actually on the same page. You have to innovate, you have to adapt, you have to grow. And if we're still doing stuff the way we did it back in 2014, we're not helping the kiddos that are coming from our system. And so if we're embedding that curriculum now inside of our program, and my son just went through it now, and I'll be honest with you, I think he found it rewarding. I think the whole process in terms of working one-on-one, identifying, I read his paper, like he's growing from that. And the fact he's gonna be doing another one, it makes me very happy. Because that's the stuff that's gonna set him up for success beyond Souhegan, if he wants to do the academic route, right? So we're not talking about the trade route. No one's gonna be writing research papers when they're working, in a plant or on an assembly line or, in their body shop. Maybe they have to do something, a business proposal to a bank, but like, these are all the foundation skills that I think could help somebody. And so taking it out as a standalone, because we've included it in the curriculum, I think it's just natural. It just feels very organic.
I've had two different types of feedback. One is,
Hold on, and Anna had something she wanted to add first.
So it wasn't an ad, so maybe finish that, because I think it flows more. I just have a question about if it's in versus out, how we're handling it with transfer students, which I know has been discussed before, but I just.
I got a question about the transfer student too thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right, good.
I was
One last time.
gonna say that I've received two different types of feedback. One is, why isn't it interdisciplinary anymore? And the other one is, what is it? So. It's, why is it a big deal? It represents Souhegan, and we have people who are defensive of that, and we need to make sure we've dotted our T's and crossed our I's.
Very
And
good.
we do this, so that's. What I'm
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah, so the transfer student, and I think a piece that needs to be amended in IKF and the graduation requirements policy is rewritten, is giving administration, the principal, the authority to waive graduation requirements as appropriate for transfer students.
We did put some sample language as recommendation in there. I think you find it on page 4 of the memo from Mr. Chamberlain. And really, it was important for us to say, may alternative pathways, because maybe a student can or wants to, or. Yeah, so you'll see that in there.
Okay, so in order to move on,
So
Yes.
if we may.
yes, go ahead.
Anna, go ahead first.
So I guess that was, is that, I know we can waive things, is it just? Like, is there a benefit to saying? That it remains within that program? I mean, within the class, is there a reason to call it out specifically? Or not? I definitely agree it doesn't need to remain as a separate standalone. And again, it just. Trying to think of what I'm trying to say, but if it's within the course. And it's called out as part of the course offering, this will include it can't just disappear without there being further discussion about it. In the future, like, it's a good reminder kind of for everyone that this is, kind of like you were talking about, Dan, the history of it, how do we get here, it's been embedded in, versus 2018, 19, I think you just read at least sometime before then. But if it's gone completely, like there's no reference to it within that course, does that make it? I don't know, does that remove it from the forefront of what
So-
needs to make sure everybody's including? Does it just become a? Well, let's look at it in 5 years, let's look at the course and decide what we want to do junior year and, and we're, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the. And this is something that's been mentioned, I know Christie's mentioned it, Dana's mentioned it.
I don't feel like I'd be clear about what
No,
I'm
I think I
saying.
know what you're saying is like, do we want to call out to make sure it stays in a course somewhere? Because I think one thing I want to be careful of is, and I think academically, it sounds like this is something you would naturally do anyway. The question is, in perpetuity, would it ever always stay in 11th grade? We don't know that. Where if we force it in 11th grade, then it beholdens them to 11th grade, where what happens if it becomes 10th grade? What if, because it fits better in the curriculum over time?
Needs to be dynamic.
So I'm
Yeah, I'm
hesitant
okay
to
with that.
not, let's say, embedded in 11th grade ELA for that reason, because we want them to be able to put it where it belongs. But that's my thoughts.
So along those lines, are you saying a student, if a student could produce extracurricular or supercurricular, 2 6-page research papers that their sophomore year or whatever, like that would check a box, is that, and you have your,
No,
No.
no, it would, no, we're saying it's taken out as a graduation requirement. Because it is something that is part of curriculum
Yeah.
because of standards and things that need to be done to make sure our students are graduating. It's not going away.
I
It's
think
always to be
what-
embedded.
So it's part of
There
a
were two-
graduate, it's a part of a course that's required for graduation. So therefore, it's not going to not be part of that course.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And but they could nimbly, like I said, down the line, maybe make it fits better into a 10th grade over time for whatever things and things
hopefully.
change in academics.
That
We
was
don't
the
want
word.
to.
Thread. Yeah, I was like,
We
there are two
don't-
loose threads floating
Yes.
here. That was one of them. And the other one is, to Mr. O'Keefe's point, if you had a student who was excelling in one of the, I've lost my brain. The children who leave the school and go do opportunities.
yeah.
Thank you. So you have someone who is excelling in childcare and they decide they want to open their own daycare. Now they're 18 and they write you two, well, they're 18, whatever. They write you two business plans, proposals they're gonna take to the bank, and they don't look exactly like a research paper, but there's research in 6 pages. That was the other thread that we give them the waive requirement to, that might be that student's best benefit.
I would say, under the current system, like, hearing that right now, my reaction is that sounds like a wonderful senior project for us to
Did I
develop
go too
with you.
far?
Because I think part of what we know to be true is that research tells us that kids can't write critically about content that they're not proficient in.
Mhm.
And so part of the benefit part of the benefit of these adaptations with JLP is to get kids to demonstrate their proficiency with these very important skills, along with this content that we also know is very important and in fact required by statute. So part of it is that, as well.
Yeah, can you elaborate on, they can't write about things they're not proficient in? At what point does the research project become how they gain proficiency? And at what point does it mean that which comes first, chicken or the egg? Is it proficiency or is it the project?
It's the proficiency in the content area. You
So-
need the knowledge, you need the knowledge base to draw from in order to write the level that we're expecting from kids in the JLP. You need that, you need a foundation on which to build.
So is that the same thing as saying the scientist has to know the results of the experiment before performing an experiment? Or,
No, it's saying you have to know things. As a
Yeah.
AP or history teacher, when we were writing about DBQs and analyzing a picture, and then you had to write about it, you couldn't, if you didn't know things about that period of history, you weren't well read, you didn't do your research, you didn't have your notes, there was no way you were gonna be able to formulate a response. So we used to talk about you have to know things before you write about things. And I think going through the course, this is what I want to speak to this. It being embedded in a course is going to help us ensure kids have the knowledge about the topic before they engage in the writing process. And that wasn't happening to the level when I was principal that I thought it needed to happen. Kids were writing about things that they didn't have deep knowledge about or didn't do as much research because they weren't partnered with an adult that was closely working with them. That was the benefit of making some adjustments for my take. And then I just want to talk before we move on, I want to talk about the waiver policy, but I'm gonna let, Mr. O'Keefe talk.
Yes, sir. I wanted to talk about specifically about the transfer process, because I want you to at least articulate to me about how it would work. So in the concern that I had reading it, if somebody moves into district their senior year because their parents moved to town, how is that student impacted when they haven't met any of their community service requirements? They didn't do any of the graduate or undergraded type stuff in sort of the program. So are we gonna work with that students? They still graduate with a Souhegan degree, or are we gonna say, check the box, go back to your old sending district?
I'll let Dana talk about currently what's happening, but I'm gonna tell you what happened when Mackenzie Berry transferred in at Souhegan High School as a junior, and her father was the principal. She took world studies as a sophomore, AP world studies as a sophomore. Karen Shanina says you can waive this. If you waive it, at the time, JLP was part of it, she would have had to do JLP outside of that. And I, at the time, was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I want her to have the whole, because it was still embedded in that course. And I asked her to take world studies for the second time. So she could be part of the JLP process with monitoring and support. Because that's what I chose to do as her parent. And I wasn't going to waive that as the principal. And it was a funny interpretation, because they were asking kids to do JLP when they moved in. And but they could waive the course that would most help them do it. And so I didn't think that was wise. And so Dana, currently, you want to speak to kind of where you guys are at with the process?
Yeah, I think our counselors do a really great job when kids transfer in reviewing their transcripts, contacting the sending schools, getting a really good understanding about what courses they've taken, what's been covered in the courses. Because, you know, maybe you took world religions. Is that the same as world studies? What are you covering? So we do a pretty deep dive into know what competencies kids have covered already or learned about already. And then, you know, it's sometimes it's some adjustments. Some things are already, it's easy to go, oh, you took this, that means Souhegan this, check the box. We look for ways to, whenever possible, embedded in the experiences that we know kids are gonna have already. We're talking about not just their proficiency level, but also what's appropriate for them developmentally. As a person who still remembers taking freshman geography as a senior when I moved to Texas, that's not the position that you want to put a kid in if you can avoid it. So we already are very flexible with kids. I think what you see in this reflected in this memo is just the codification of a practice that we already have.
And just real quick, when I was in high school, it helps if they come from an accredited school. So that is kind of the language, and like NEASC is our accredited, NEASC accredits a lot of schools, and there are other accrediting bodies. So we do, like Tim will look and check to make sure they have an accreditation, because that is a acceptance of a standard. So.
Makes sense. All right, so what I'm hearing right now is that
May I ask just one more question?
ask one more question.
Thank you. Is it still true or not true that the student can pick the topic? Or there at least one, I guess, or both of their,
I would say that there's structured choice. Yes, they can pick the topic from
with guidance?
within the realm of what we've been studying. Right, because again, we're going back to this, you're not gonna be able to write critically about something that you don't have a baseline level of knowledge
Totally
about.
understand.
You don't have to know every single thing, but you need a toehold in.
Absolutely.
And that, again, not to continue to make my case here, but that is another way to ensure depth over breadth.
Yep.
Because you're building on
Yep.
what you know.
My angle was that if somebody was really interested in more math and science, could they pick a math and science topic to do research to demonstrate this competencies what the JLP is going, as opposed to what was going on in the English class or what was going on in the social studies class in terms of a more closed universe. That's part of where I was coming from.
Right.
For the STEM kids, not the STEAM kids, the STEM kids maybe could, and for area of interest, my thought was if a student is interested in, the physics thing or this or that, then maybe they're more likely to knuckle down and do a really good job with their research paper. But if it's just kind of like, history this, history that, and it's like, ugh.
Sure, I mean, we
That
still
was good.
expect kids to have to be knowledgeable in these other content areas. So I think when for that STEM kid, they're gonna have a great experience with their senior project. They will have the skills and the passion.
You inspire them by.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Just one question, and this is probably gonna be incredibly, I'm sure I'm just missing something here. But when I look at IKF and the list of like, you gotta have this many credits of this many credits of this, which one of these does world studies fall under?
So, well, it's social studies, but then,
But if
but it's ELA, don't forget that we co-teach ELA with the world studies, right? So it's two separate classes, one's English, one's social studies, but we co-teach as a unit.
I guess my thing is that there's technically nothing here that says you have to take that class. I know that's what we do that year, like we teach that they take the two, but I'm looking at IKF.
You don't see Ralston?
World history, 0.5.
World History 0.5, but is that the World Studies class that is doing the JLP?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure, because that's what I wasn't, I mean, we're using the world, you know, I just want to make sure there's not
A way to get.
a way to get, that just it
Out of
gets
it.
dropped.
You're worried
Because
about
now,
getting
wait,
out.
we don't
Right.
take world studies. I found this other course that's now being offered that meets this requirement, because technically, like I'm looking at world history, global studies or geography, half a credit. You know, so I just don't want there to be something,
It's under the required.
a loophole.
So
There's nothing called world studies under the requires.
No, but so if you
Well,
look
and the
at,
recommendation
but I
is
just
to
want, I want
delete
to just say a
section
second.
B.
In the memo that was laid out here from Mr. Chamberlain,
Mhm.
where he
Nice,
goes
right.
through the language change, the notes. And additional requirements. Additional requirements list junior learning project to be required to be completed as part of. Achieving credit in world studies. So I think if we're using this sort of document to help drive policy IKF changes. That's my question is, do you want that spelled out in there as a requirement, or do we just want to say? World studies is required?
To be honest, that's where we thought we were.
That's where I thought. we
Coming
were.
in, like,
Yeah.
but if it's in a required class, then it would be redundant, but as Dana, Mike and I said, if that's where we are to meet the board where it's at, that's why we did it.
Problem with it being integrated, I just want to make sure that it's clear that the world studies course that we're talking about integrating it in.
If we follow the new outline from
But it's
Mr.
going-
Chamberlain, it will be laid out.
I mean, it's not really an outline, right? Because it's I mean, it is an outline. I appreciate it. It was very helpful. I don't mean to say that, but it says, you know, basically we're gonna remove this and this is why. This is all the reasons. It's not like everything on the right side of that chart is gonna go into the new policy. Well, I mean, this is the reason and the explanation on the right side of what you're looking at. It's the notes on
Right.
that memo.
But this would help guide the language that falls into IKF. So if we want to say, this is what we want, it would fall into the language that could fall into.
We're gonna put all of that language.
No,
in.
we're not, but right now,
Right.
world history is required in the current IKF policy.
Yes.
Okay.
So from a process standpoint,
Yes.
what we're going to accomplish, because I've got two more questions about the proposal, but we are going to now adopt the recommendation based on the memo, and then we're gonna go to policy and we're gonna craft a policy
And
that's
bring
gonna
it
make
back.
sure that world history is specifically stated as we delete section B, that's actually in the recommendation in the last paragraph. That's my understanding.
Yes.
So I think that will address your concern, Anna, to make sure that no one can, come up with a loophole to get around this
Yes,
process.
that's what I like.
Just
Just read
remove-
embedded in the new policy.
Yes.
It's not clear
That's
from
what
what
the chart
exists, that it has to be included.
Okay.
But my two questions before I make a motion to adopt. Number one is, the personal finance class. I know we had some conversation here back and forth, maybe 2 meetings ago, about the 306s, and, I think we got the number wrong, or whatever that is. I see here that, you don't actually necessarily support, as a result of the desire of depth over breadth.
Correct.
So I know the state requirement is an online, you can take a 20-minute video through PragerU and then boom, you've got this credit. So explain to me real fast about the depth and breadth of what makes it so unique that we want to do that as a standalone versus incorporating that in our other sort
It
of
was an
core
economic.
programs. Because one of the feedbacks I've got, and Dan, this is the luxury and beauty of washing this through our community, was that people feel that the economics class is taking away from the arts. And whether or not someone can participate in a music class or a combos class or a drama class, because they have this economics class now, it's not freeing up freshmen and sophomores to do so. So if I could just quickly hear why the depth of breadth is different from the state requirement and why we're placing a higher value on that versus a potential elective for some of the lower grades.
So, freshmen are not taking economics. Our new recommendation to kids is that they're waiting until 11th grade to take economics. And we still recommend kids fill one of their elective spots with an art. We just no longer require them to do so. They definitely still have the ability to do that. With an 8-period day, over 4 years, students absolutely have the ability to take an art every 4 years and take economics and personal finance. So the logistics of it work. That doesn't answer your question about why do we believe they should be 2 standalone courses, right? The state is saying you need a half credit of competency in this bucket and a half credit competency in this bucket, and the new 306s tell us that half credit doesn't mean half year, so do what you want, right? But what we're saying is when you look at what it means to be proficient in the area of economics, and when you look at what it means to be proficient in the area of personal finance, right? So looking at a broad system about societies and nations and global and how you know, systems are managing their money versus me personally, 15-year-old, those are different things that we're trying to teach. And to combine both of those things in a semester-based class, it does become a little bit about time. There isn't enough time to do that, or else we will be doing a week of this, a week of this, a week of this, and now you're done. Right, but we want students to be able to, and we've heard it from the board, we value financial literacy. And that's gonna come from personal finance more than it's gonna come from economics, right? So that's why we remain that way. That's why our recommendation stands in that way.
Okay, and then we're gonna continue to wash that through our system to evaluate and make corrective and proactive changes in a sense appropriate. Thank you.
Absolutely.
My last,
Go ahead.
Yeah, well,
Please, you finish yours.
my last question was the computer literacy thing. So are we still chasing students the last week of school to check that box? That's far it goes?
No improvement.
Far improved. So, part of what we did with the graduation committee work that we did several years ago was bring Souhegan into compliance with what the standards was. Standard is half credit competency in this area. And students were doing that by compiling a kind of spreadsheet of work I've done in other places. That's not a half credit of competency, just taking work that you've already got credit for somewhere else, right? It's not meaningful. And so what we were able to do with the state guidance is go through and audit our courses where we are already doing these skills and say, here's this is not a figure, here's the 20 classes where you can demonstrate that competency. And so we're not chasing kids for a box check anymore.
You're just giving like a menu saying, at some point, you gotta take one of these 20
Correct.
and you'll check that box. The computer technology stuff.
Right, information technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just on the personal finance thing, I mean, economics, people get PhDs in it, right? Nobody gets a PhD in personal finance, but it's a complicated topic, right? It's more just about opening a savings and checking account and balancing a checkbook, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I would expect a personal finance.
checkbook, just kidding.
Personal finance to talk about what does it mean to invest, about compound interest, about the need for insurance to protect you, the difference between term and whole life insurance, right? Why, limits, premiums, deductibles, limitations. I mean, all those are all aspects of a personal finance course, I would hope, yes. You're nodding your head in agreement. So it's the fun stuff about watching your money grow, but it's also spending money to protect yourself from undue risk. Okay.
The household management versus systems.
The things that were-
Okay.
If I remember, personal
What?
finance, graduating from high school was,
Right.
how to handle credit cards, because you get a million credit card
So,
offers in the mail. as soon as you get called.
interrupt a second? So I think we don't need to delineate what's in the personal finance course. I think we're good. I think. But Mr. Keith, you have a motion?
You're right, we got inundated when we were our age, now everything's online, so.
Yeah.
I don't think they get those things in the mail anymore. I'm gonna make a motion to adopt the memorandum for revisions to policy IKF, high school graduation requirements, and move the memorandum to the policy committee to craft a policy to present to this board for approval.
Do I have a second?
So moved. Or so seconded.
All right. Any last discussion? All right, those in favor? Any opposed? That passes 7-0. Thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone's discussion and thoughtfulness. So
we can now move forward. So policy committee, go for it. Next thing, the hockey program, formation of cooperative teams. I'm assuming that is why Kelly is
Kelly.
here.
If you want to sit at the table.
Yes, and we
Sit
just
at the
want to say.
table?
Not that table. Yeah, you're right at the table, yeah.
Instead of the big.
Yeah, this is, so you weren't here, but we acknowledge the letter you received from the NHIA, so congratulations. and Thank you for all of your hard work.
Kelly, have you met Jane?
Yes.
Hey, Kelly. What's Dylan?
He's okay. Yeah, nothing crazy serious, so. He'll be back in no time, so. I am here to propose the formation of a cooperative girls hockey team. With Nashua North and Nashua South. The current roster size of our girls this year after graduation is going to be such that we will not be able to sustain a program on our own. Nashua currently does not have a girls program, but they do have between the two schools, between 5 and 7 athletes that don't have an option to play. Given our longstanding relationship with them in the hockey world, that makes a lot of sense to be able to pair up with them. So the proposal has been written. I believe it's been included and shared. Yes?
Yes. No.
No, we don't have, we just had the note.
We just have the note about it, but we don't have any document.
Where can I put this easily?
And now I'll do like.
Hold on, I think Mike's adding.
Okay,
Email it to Microfast and then you can.
here, yes.
You have it.
I do.
Doing your,
I probably.
we'll probably have to refresh.
Yeah.
You email it.
So, Kelly, you can start talking.
Sure.
And then
So with this co-op, since Souhegan is the already established team, Souhegan will be the lead school in the co-op. The intention is that our coaching staff will continue to coach the program. Representation will be split between Souhegan and Nashua, just as we have done for the boys for the last 10 years. Souhegan will maintain the responsibility of making sure coaches are eligible. We'll still carry the lead title for the program. The other component to this is practice facility, which is what brings in the boys side of things. Our current boys numbers coupled with Nashua North and the South Pelham side of things has led to the dissolution of our boys co-op with Nashua North. Nashua North and South intend to co-op on the boys side, which is going to leave the practice time once occupied by Souhegan available for the girls team to step into. So consistent practice time at Conway, games at Conway, a locker room at Conway, which is something the girls program has never had. So I think that's a real benefit there. We'll get to the boys side after. We'll just focus on the girls for now. So with that, transportation would be handled in the same way we've handled the boys program. Athletes would meet at the rink, the bus would pick up from the rink, and go from there. We would be, responsible for scheduling buses and contests and things. And then since we would have a home with a locker room, all of our gear would be there. The girls could show up, load up the bus, return back to Conway after. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. It should be a budget neutral move. Nashua will pay, the total cost will be added up. They'll pay per athlete. We'll break it down full cost per athlete. So it shouldn't cost more, even though the girls will have more practice time. If this all goes through than they've had in the past. With Nashua taking on some of that financial burden, it shouldn't impact us. Budgetarily speaking.
Mr. Mayor, I see a question.
Thanks, Kelly, for putting this together. And with the boys team, who will manage, will it be you or Lisa that would control the team?
For the girls?
Yeah,
Souhegan will be the lead school.
so because we had some philosophical incompatibilities. I think at times.
Yeah, Souhegan will be the lead school in this co-op.
Mr. Glover?
I really would agree with what you said about, since we already have this relationship with Nashua, makes sense for the girls to follow that relationship, but then if the relationship with Nashua for the boys is dissolved, the boys are looking for some other partner, presumably. So would it make sense to then leave open the opportunity for the girls to match partners for the boys with wherever they were, to have a cohesive, whatever the cohesion
Yeah.
was a benefit, which
Yeah.
Nashua could remain.
So there are only 16 girls teams in the state of New Hampshire compared to 37 boys. So that makes it a little bit trickier. To find a partnership where both schools have both boys and girls. The accessibility of the rink that's right here too makes it, I mean, a really advantageous partnership as well. So, I mean, ideally, every school would have girls hockey and we could all just play together and the sport would be fantastic, but that's not the case. Only 16 programs, so. And as of those 16, I think, with us co-oping now, there will only be 5 standalone schools. The rest of the girls' programs are all co-opted, at least 2, if not, most of them are 3.
And Kelly, it's true that there's a timeline
Correct.
that's involved in this, like
Yes.
some schools just entered into a
Yes.
co-op, they can't break up,
Yes,
right? You're
Yeah.
invested for a certain
Right.
time period,
Yeah.
so in terms of being able to, even if there was the timeline, you
Yeah,
could not.
yeah, there were
Line up.
3-year contract, 2-year contract, something.
2, yeah, it matches up with the classification cycle.
If you hit refresh, the proposals in there,
Yeah.
kind of outlined, it just recaps.
Okay.
Kelly, I'm sorry.
No worries. The only thing that'll differ from the proposal you see versus what we have is that Nashua did have their board meeting on Monday. So I do have a fully executed and signed, copy from them. So both North and South have already signed off on their part. So,
This would start next year.
this would start, yes, net for the 25-26 school year.
How many players are they contributing to?
Somewhere between 5 and 7 total. So with our 7 to 10, that's a
full team.
fine,
Yeah.
it's a fine team.
So is it a new team for both Nashua South and North as far as the
Correct,
girls? Okay.
correct. So I mean, part of it makes me really happy to be bringing hockey to a place, girls hockey to a place.
So
two
what's the
places.
name going to be?
We're working on that. I don't know if it'll be the
Is it
Titan Cats or who knows,
Yeah.
but they're gonna
Yeah.
be some funky looking uniforms too, purple, blue and
Yeah.
gold.
Well, you know, it's exciting that the girls are going to have the ability to continue instead of not.
Yes.
I have to say, I am happy to hear that we will be the lead
Yes.
in coordinating that, so I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Things you
I'm
need?
gonna say, Dan,
She
because
needs
of your
an
affiliation
approval.
with Prime, you wanna make the motion and accept it?
Sure. I move that we enter into a cooperative athletic agreement with Nashua, North and South. And
Girls hockey.
for girls hockey.
I'll second that.
All right, second, discussion? Those in favor? That will be 7-0. So thank you very much. I appreciate the work. And you want to talk about the boys?
So,
Sure.
hold for 1 second.
Go ahead.
As you get, gotta talk about boys hockey, but we're gonna not be able to make a motion to approve anything tonight. We're gonna have to have another meeting. And we'll talk about skylights, talk about PPC stuff. We'll talk about this. And hopefully we're a little farther along, you know what I mean, in this. But you get an update tonight on where we're at, but we're not gonna ask for a motion to approve anything this evening.
Yeah, so the timing of everything and with where people are at in the middle of their cycles are the dissolution of Souhegan on the boys' side leaves our players needing a home. We are talking about 3 current players that will be left after graduation this year and potentially a 4th coming in as a freshman. I have had conversations with honestly every hockey team from Concord South to figure out what this looks like. The ice hockey committee, which I'm also a part of, is wholly invested on figuring out you know, kind of this epidemic that's going on in hockey right now, especially on the boys' side, though the girls' side did lose a program this year, in Convalcona having to fold. So there is a clear need to reassess how we handle high school hockey in the state of New Hampshire. We have a committee meeting tomorrow where a large portion of that meeting is gonna be to further discuss how we can do that, how we can think creatively to be able to operate in the best interest of students and be able to provide them interscholastic opportunities, which are vastly different than that of club and juniors. But the timeline on that moves quickly as well. If our current players were to want to go and explore a club juniors opportunity, they would have to do that. They'd have to make that decision by the middle of February. So this paperwork for co-op is due February 24th to the NHIA. So I am continuing conversations with teams in the area. And like we said, of those 37 teams boys teams that exert 36 now, because D3 lost 2. 36 that are in the state, there are maybe just barely double digits that stand alone. There are a lot of boys teams that are also co-opt in 2 and 3. The limit for co-op is 3. In speaking with Jeff Collins at the NHIA, the council is not interested at this time in exploring 4. Regional teams are something they are pretty vehemently against. I intend on pushing that thinking a little bit, because I think we have to be more creative if the sport is something that we want to be able to offer to our student athletes. So there are a few options. None of them are necessarily perfect. But in order for us to be able to provide the opportunity for our students to be able to continue in interscholastic hockey and not force their hand and go to juniors or club, I'm gonna keep continuing to pursue these options. So yeah, that's the update.
So we were co-op with Nashua North. What was happening before with Nashua South? Is it?
Nashua South was co-op with Pelham. Pelham no longer has any hockey players in the program.
Got
So
it.
that,
So that's why they're
yes.
combining and.
Right.
All right.
Mr. Schroeder, you had a question?
Yes, a couple things. If we don't provide, for instance, a hockey team,
Mhm.
does the student have the opportunity to play for another high school?
No. Not unless we co-op with them.
No. Okay, all right. Is there any junior program? Like, I know it's got a junior program. Is there any junior?
Oh, like a
program?
feeder program, like a
Yes.
youth program? There are
We deal
several.
like with multiple towns, so then they come up. and they're-
Not that we do. There are several club and junior programs in southern New Hampshire. Conway has a couple, Tri-Town and Hooksett. It just got bought out by the Mountain Kings, which is a new junior program that are housing students at NHDI. And they're doing like a
gets
virtual
competitive
learning and then
really
they're
fast.
playing hockey there. Exeter does a similar program. Skate 3 houses Top Gun and the Stars and one other that is now the Islanders.
Okay.
So there are plenty of opportunities in southern New Hampshire for them to pick, but it comes with a price tag. Like hockey is an expensive sport to get your child into. Dan can definitely speak to that. So, it's tough. We've tried in the past. The rec used to put, an outdoor rink on the tennis courts at AMS. I would take players every Sunday, go down there, try to get the youth in town to come do a little learn to skate with some players, both on the boys and girls side. That was cute, but not like wildly attended, and the weather makes it a little difficult for ice to freeze for any considerable amount of time to get out there and play, so. So there are opportunities for people to play if they're willing to invest.
But and then they get competitive really fast, like if they
Yeah.
don't start in like the really young division, if they start in club, they're not gonna just join suddenly.
Usually what happens is they come in, they have a choice of playing full season or half
Yeah,
season, split season. As when they get into high school, and more of them are choosing the full season.
Yeah.
Even without juniors, it's a step below juniors, so you're staying with your club for the full year, or we're losing kids to EG or,
Prep and product, I don't know if we have any hockey players at PG, I mean, there might be.
yeah, they would.
There's
At
two.
least one of them is senior.
Yes, so you'll be coming back in a February meeting, most likely, that we're gonna have to schedule to approve whatever this is.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, so we'll talk about, I guess, the timing of that.
In general, the decline of hockey, is it mainly because of over sport, or they're just not participating in sports?
Hockey is an anomaly within the world of interscholastic athletics because of its particular level of accessibility to fit, right? Like you can't just go play rec. It's not like rec soccer where you can sign up for a 9 a.m. Sunday from 3 years old. Like you've got to be willing to invest. I think where the economy was 10 to 15 years ago plays a factor into whether or not we have high school players here, whether or not families were willing to put that money in at that time. Because it's been super cyclical. For example, like when we first formed the boys co-op in 2015, the year prior, actually the 2 years prior, we won a state championship. And then the next year couldn't field our own team. Like hockey is a very temperamental, like up and down situation. And especially like they get the taste of that and then they're like, I'm great, I'm gonna go try out for a tier 1 junior program and go off and play. So the landscape of high school hockey has definitely changed, and part of our work on the committee is trying to figure out why and how to swing it back the other way.
Thank you. One last question?
Yes,
Then we're gonna move
please.
on.
No, BNI in HIAA can be, they say, rigid in their rules. Do their rules allow for a 2-school cooperative to welcome a 3rd school within their you said 2-year agreement?
In the middle of?
Yes.
Yes, which is what we would be looking to do.
So you don't have to lobby to get a rule changed for this.
No, and I mean, there's precedent set. We've done it because of the way hockey is, it's already kind of has several exceptions within the NHIA bylaws, for example. You know, if we were to petition with 2 other, maybe larger schools, that would push us up to D1. In hockey, you can petition down a division and still qualify for playoffs. You can't do that in any other sport.
Right, and then the corollary question is, you said there was a mid-February deadline?
Mhm.
I mean, if we're still looking and searching, I mean, is it a big deal if that's 2 weeks delayed? Is there an opportunity for them to grant an extension on the deadline so that we can allow us sufficient time diligently working towards the
Yes,
whole time?
yeah, there
Is there?
is. It's not wildly popular, but it has been done. I would like to have it nailed down beforehand.
Sure.
And believe me, the people know I am looking.
Have you had any other bites at all? No.
Yeah, I mean, people are searching for numbers. I don't think everybody, until it's a problem for them, they're not necessarily as diligently monitoring their numbers in their program.
So, great. So my one request as you go out there is, we always talk about students missing class because of games and things. And
Yep.
the further north we go or the further out we go, the more a student has to travel
Yep.
and would miss more class,
Yes.
which I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
So just do your best.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that limits us really to like
Yeah.
3 places, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
It's
I
tough.
totally understand
Yeah.
and we'll pursue that.
Pays the travel costs back and forth from Browners. Do the kids the families do that on their own?
Yes.
All right. All right, so we will come back and visit in February. Later.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not February yet. Thank you. All right, so we have, next on the list is the approval of G policies. These are the ones we discussed that, we had the non-meeting about since it's regarding
I
negotiations.
move to accept the 4G policies as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe stepped out, so I think we're gonna vote. Yeah, we still have quorum. So those in favor of accepting the G policies as presented? Raise your hand.
Wait,
Oh, these are the ones that we had the non-meeting.
no, I know.
What,
Okay. GCJA,
what about GCL?
GCL is coming back. Well, that's a
Okay,
separate one
that's
that
what I
we're
wanna
coming
make
back, so
sure,
it's not on
just-
here.
I'm like, okay, wait, I thought we were still talking
Yes,
about
there's
that
some
one. Oh,
wording
just- So
language.
just the four that are here under this, not that one, even though it
Correct.
was part of our bigger package.
Correct,
Got
that's
it.
coming back because of some final language and it will be cleared up.
No,
probably next.
just wanna make sure that I'm
Okay.
fine.
All right, so those in favor, once again? 6-0. I'm sure Mr. O'Keefe is fine, but because he was on the call. Okay, policies. Anna, or not, you're not you anymore. Sorry, John or Dan, do you want to speak to any of there's Title IX policies that are all in here, ACs? Or
And these are all the same ones we went through at the SAU meeting.
they were the one that SAU, so this is our first read. Are there any questions? Nothing? All right, so we will bring them back next meeting for second reading approval.
Yeah.
Okay,
And if you haven't read them, you are interested, I mean, there's not a rubber stamp. There's a first reading and a second reading for a reason. So don't feel obliged to say, oh, well, the ship's already sailed. I'm looking at you because you're new to the thing, but it's true for everybody.
The rhythm and how we do things,
it's
So
yeah,
fascinating.
I'll pick up.
if you haven't read them or you want to read them again, I mean, this is the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. To go quickly through committee updates, was there anything from policy committee?
No, we finished off a bunch of policies the other day that will be coming to, the SAU, right?
Yeah, that's a meeting in February.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right on.
So there'll be another batch coming.
Okay, through SAU and then done the rest of all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Finance,
If I was just, I would imagine with the graduation requirements. Charge that pretty much it's Dan and I are going to. Noodle it, I mean, there's really, I guess if anyone from the other districts wants to provide their feedback into this loop, it's fine, but. Really, it's incumbent upon you and me probably to take the memo, take the existing policy, produce a red line and bring it back for the February meeting,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes, thank you, appreciate you clearing that up.
sure.
Finance committee, really nothing going on there. Any Brook School maintenance discussion? Nothing going on that I know of. Okay, wellness.
Nothing.
Community council, one thing I remembered too late, but community council, so the policy that they're bringing forward with the 10th grade having the ability to leave campus also includes giving them a free period
That's what
their
you said.
sophomore year.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a hearty discussion because it is not something that is in that we have agreed to. So that will be brought up as a piece of the discussion.
So I learned on Tuesday that, believe it or not, students are actually against those ideas. And so it's gonna be very fascinating. I was just talking to Maya. It's gonna be fascinating to see how students respond to that proposal.
It is being brought forward by
Open campus and free periods and stuff like that. So that's the dynamic of our world, especially in this building. So it's gonna be
Yes.
challenging and interesting to see how this all pops up.
Yes,
The students at the other school that we heard about on Tuesday shot it down, not parents or board members or teachers.
yeah,
So behold.
yeah, so I applaud them for working through this.
It's also hard, and I don't know that it matters. I don't know that it's directly relevant, but in the discussions with them, if it ever comes up, there are other things like. We talk about the food budget and the fact that the more students are leaving campus, the harder it is to have a robust food. I mean, and that includes not
Most
just,
of them can't drive right now.
well, I know, but it includes not just, can't get rides. I mean, it's not just is it breaking even, but. If you get less and less people using the food,
Mhm.
there's less and less offerings that could be made, and there's less, there's a lot of things that they may not.
Dynamic, yeah,
So hopefully that sort of thing will come up in
Yep.
that robust discussion.
yep. Absolutely. Nothing really with PPC. Is there anything recreation,
Nope.
anything going on with the agreement
Oh, I've got
discussion
stuff to share, but
in
not with that,
non-public?
unfortunately, we've tabled that. So
Okay,
James and I are gonna be sponsoring a community meet event on Saturday, March the 8th, up at the Dalen Memorial Library. starting at 10:30 in the morning, going to about noon. We have created a contact strategy with members of the Mount Vernon community to come and talk to the two of us about our budget. We're gonna have copies of our voter guide that we'll present to folks and answer questions. So this will be the third year that we've done it. Year number one, we had 2 people show up. Last year, we had, I think, close to 20 people show up. So James is gonna be cooking eggs and omelets and all that stuff, and the library doesn't know that part yet.
Do now.
Wait, when is that?
I'm coming, I'll be there.
But yeah, hopefully, we're gonna engage some of our community folks to talk about our budget and all the good things that are happening here at the high school.
Fantastic. Glad you brought that up because I was contacted by the PTSA for February 11th for us to go present our budget to a group that they're bringing in as part of Amherst. The town will be there, Amherst School District, and they invited me to come. So I'll be there to help talk about the Amherst side. Anything else?
Then in full disclosure, just making sure everyone here is aware, I'm also serving on the town budget committee, and our town budget, excluding warrant articles, is actually up 9.58%. So when we talk about the impacts of our budget here on our community, with the village school being up a minuscule amount, it's important because we have to remember that we are just 1/3 of the cog in the tax wheel for our community. So I thank everybody here at our budget committee for its due diligence and making sure that we present a very lean budget. I think next year our increases will drop because this is the first year that our library is going to be hitting our bottom line, which in of itself was a rather sizable increase to our bottom line. So this hopefully will be the last almost double-digit increase. Last year was a sizable one as well, and they'll start to be normalized beginning next year.
Great, thank you. The only last thing I just want to ask an update, Mr. Glover, is there anything with the Constitution Interpretation Committee to bring up at all, or it's to become later?
No. And yes, not now, but later. Their next meeting is Monday.
Okay.
And I think we kind of had a first real meeting once the clarification, this board's clarification was last month. And that just sort of got us rolling and brainstorming and thinking in the committee what we're doing. And then this meeting on Monday is geared towards making substantive progress rather, in an organized manner. So it may not be fully completed by our next February meeting, but there should be something to report, I think. There is a chance, however, that the committee might want to not present a partial report, because there's some have expressed belief that it is one document. It's a beginning and an end. It has 4 corners. So to give a partial response may not be doing that justice, especially because there's terms that are referenced in multiple places. So I don't know, can't speak for the committee on that. So possibly in February, there'll be an output or maybe there's March or April, whatever, our next meeting post-election.
Okay, great, thank you. So we're on to superintendent updates.
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief. Couple things I've been talking about. We had a couple transportation accidents and yeah, I've been very pleased with the bus company's response to it. The major one on 101A was a little bit scary and I'm not gonna lie, that was a rough 8 minutes. When you get a phone call, it says, hey, there's been a bus accident and there's been unsubstantiated injuries. And so from the brick to there, a little unsettling, but you know, I was very fortunate the timing of things. Followed the ambulances in from Amherst, Milford and Hollis. And there was a lot of first responders, a lot of help. Bus company coordinated a bus to get the kids. And it was AMS Souhegan Route. We had about 12 kids, 3-4 seniors, high school kids. So it was handled really well. And I really do appreciate that. Next thing, Steve, Mr. Chamberlain, Ms. Cannon, and Heather Jennings and I have been going to all the schools around the SAU, including Souhegan. We actually today went to Souhegan, spending about 4 hours walking through classrooms, getting a feel for talking to teachers, We did this officially as a group and we split into two and the administrators come with us and it's a very formal process. This is in addition to people being in classrooms on a regular basis, but it's a commitment to this. And, this helps us with our work and see how things are going. And it was an incredible visit. And I just have to say, when I don't come back to Souhegan very often to superintendent, but it is such a good feeling when I do. And, so I like that. Saw some good stuff today. Framework update, we're keep plugging away on that. And originally we were going to try to roll some things out before deliberatives. That's just not going to be the case. I'm very, very pleased with the quality of the feedback I got from building administrators, their leadership teams, and staff around the SAU. It's kind of grown into its own brand. People refer to it as the framework. They can reference things. They have input. They're looking to see where they can find themselves within that, work. So like it's here at the SAU level to the building level goals and to the teacher goals. And just a real credit to the administration, here at Souhegan and the other schools for the work around that. I think it's only gonna, get tightened and get better. And so we're taking our time to really get through that and do it really well. And I appreciate the SPPC group kind of meeting with us and more to come on that. And the last update is transportation. We're scheduled to hear from Beacon Mobility as they officially acquire Butlers on January 31st. And we haven't had any real conversations about what they have in mind as far as what the short-term things look, the changes look like. I know, Amy, just make sure you keep me true here. They are, advertising and working and attracting, they have a talent acquisition department and so they are working on that and then getting people in the queue and trained. And he's going to reach out to us when it officially happens. So we're getting closer and we'll update you as it goes. Looking forward to it. So, any questions for me or anything on the update? That's all I have for tonight.
We give you a really, really quick kudos.
Yeah.
But you raised his hand first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, there were a couple times, the bus crash and a couple other things where on our Facebook community, someone would be like, does anyone, the data breach?
Yeah.
People would be like, oh my gosh, I just saw this, does anyone know? And a bunch of parents would chime in, oh yeah, the administrator, I'll notify us.
Yeah.
Everybody's got kids impacted now.
Hold it down.
Like, it was just like immediately, everybody, why are you trying to ramp this up kind of a response?
Yeah.
So.
I
yeah,
do,
love the
yeah.
Quick communication on everything.
So an example, like on the bus thing, I drove there, Steve and Katie got together and started working on the communications. And I got there within 8 minutes and I'm not lying, and it had already made it to social media before I had responded. And so we were just as timely as we could. And then with the power school breach, Brian Miller has been doing a good diligence with, himself primarily. Kelly Mooney's been helping and Katie around, doing that. And we're slowed up a little bit with power school's response but we do have, working with Primex, working with some legal consults around that and, more updates. So an update just came out today, the facts.
Can I clarify something?
Security consulting firm and legal.
Yeah.
So the Power School breach, and correct me if I'm wrong, the breach happened with Power School where they were storing it was not a breach in our system. It was a breach at Power School system. I think that's something a lot of people don't understand.
Correct.
It's not our school system that was breached.
Everyone using.
Our data is stored off-site. And that's what was breached through with
Yeah.
Power School.
And more to come on that as we acquire more information and grateful for it and I appreciate that. And Mr. O'Keefe.
Yeah, so just with the transportation piece, I do have some concerns about the acquiring company. So just make sure that we stay on top of the expense side of that ledger, because although we may be thinking that there's gonna be very promising opportunities, the history isn't necessarily there with this company. So let's just try to make sure that we stay on and enforce our contract and try to really strenuously request the parameters of our contract be applied.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first thing that I said to them, that, you know, our understanding is that they are obliged to, once the contract is assigned, if they need to, adhere to, everything within that contract, and that's their understanding.
Yeah, but they're, I don't want to get too much of it because it's a public session, but
Yeah.
I just got concerns there, so
Okay.
we just gotta make sure that we're very diligent.
Yeah.
Anything else for Mr. Berry?
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Appreciate it.
We're in public input 2 of 2. If anyone has anything in the room, no. Anyone online, if you have anything you would like to have input on, please raise your hand. We will promote you.
Doesn't look like we are.
No? All right, we will close public input and we will go into non-public under can I have a motion to go in non-public 91A32, I see K. And we also need to put G under that.
So moved. G and K?
Anna? G and K.
George and,
C and
Cat.
I think it's reputation, but it's C.
No, we'll make it up. I'll help you.
Those letters.
No,
C and K.
K is really
Oh, C.
special.
because
C is
they're
cat,
under
K is-
legislation, but we don't typically
C
go.
is a
under
cat,
that.
K is a kitty.
Okay.
I'll help you out.
C and K, no, I can do that, I'm just going to get some, so C and K. Got
C's
it.
reputation, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
G. Well, you had G. G is one because that's the security one that we were gonna follow up on in non-public with Mr. Glover from the beginning with the labels.
No, I thought he wanted the other one.
No, you wanted to follow up and,
Not the light bulb.
No.
Team maintenance.
oh, the
The
make,
other one.
Yeah, he wanted the other, one. He wanted C.
see,
So it's C. It's not security, it's reputation.
It's the
okay,
payment.
Yeah.
okay, so
Out of
C,
district.
C and K.
C and
So
K.
do I have to even write out what it's for? Can I just say C, G, and K?
There's no G, C and K.
C, it's C and K, sorry.
I thought someone just said K, okay.
C and K, C and K. I was,
All right, I'm just gonna say that, and I'm just not gonna have a description,
yes, that's
right?
okay, sorry.
They can look it up.
It's in the statute, right? If anyone
Yeah,
needs it, they
you
can
can
look it up.
We have not yet entered non-public.
No, so I just need a motion, quick roll call vote under
Yes, whoever, yes.
O'Keefe, yes.
Fred, yes.
Peter just.
Glazer, yes?
Sturgeon, yes.
Hey, you guys.
All right, we're going to non-public.
We're going to public and